The Discovery and Sigma-7. The salvage tug Rusty Fortune drifted through the debris field like a scavenger, picking through bones. Captain Sarah Chen leaned against the viewport, coffee in hand, watching her crew's helmet lights flicker across twisted metal and frozen coolant clouds. 3 weeks in the Sigma-7 system and all they'd found were scraps, not even enough to cover fuel costs. "Captain," her engineer Marco's voice crackled through the comm. "You're gonna want to see this." Sarah's eyes narrowed. Marco didn't get excited easily. "What have you got?" "Something big, real big. Sending coordinates now." She pulled up the scanner display and her coffee mug stopped halfway to her lips. The signature was massive, easily 3 kilometers stem to stern. Her pulse quickened. Ships that size meant salvage bonuses that could set them up for a year. All hands converge on Marco's position, and somebody wake up Torres, tell him to prep the cutting torches. 20 minutes later, the Rusty Fortune rounded a shattered moon fragment, and Sarah's breath caught in her throat. The ship hung in the void like a sleeping god. Its hull was dark, scarred by weapons fire and micrometeor impacts, but the basic structure remained intact. The design was unmistakably Kaleen, all elegant curves and crystalline spires that made human engineering look like crude metalwork by comparison. "Holy shit," Torres whispered over the comm. "That's a Kaleen dreadnought. Eternal class if I'm reading the hull markings right." Sarah's mind raced. The Galactic Empire didn't just abandon ships like this. They were too proud, too territorial. Run a full sweep. Life signs, power signatures, active systems, anything. The minutes crawled by as her sensors officer Yuki worked the console. "Finally, nothing, Captain." "She's cold. No power, no life support, no active defenses. Wait, what? There's a beacon. Old one, almost out of juice. Translating now." Yuki's face went pale. "It's a Kalen condemnation marker. Ship designation, eternal sovereignty. Status, irreparable catastrophic failure. Authorized for abandonment under Imperial Salvage Code 77 Alpha." The bridge went silent. Torres was the first to speak. "They just left it?" "The Kaleen don't repair," Sarah said slowly, remembering her xenology briefing from the war. "Their tech is grown, not built. If something breaks at the core level, they can't fix it. They have to grow a new one. Takes decades." Marco's voice came through, excited now. "Captain, I'm looking at the damage reports in the beacon data. Their quantum drive failed. Cascade took out the primary power distribution network and fried their organic computing substrate. To them, this thing's a corpse." Sarah felt a smile tugging at her lips. "But to us, it's a pile of parts. Complicated, alien, beautiful parts, but parts we can actually work with." She pulled up the ship's schematics from the beacon, her engineer's eye dissecting the damage. The Kaleen built their ships like living organisms. Elegant, efficient, impossible to repair if you didn't have their bioforging tech. But humans built things with bolts and welds and pure stubborn refusal to admit when something was impossible. "Yuki, how long until this sector gets its next patrol?" "Kaleen, not for another 8 months. They've pulled most of their forces to the Andros front. As for human space," she checked her charts. "We're technically in neutral territory. No one's going to care about a derelict." Sarah set down her coffee and straightened up. The crew was watching her, waiting. This was the moment. The smart play was to strip what they could carry, sell it at Terminus Station, and walk away with enough credits for a comfortable year. But Sarah Chen hadn't become a salvage captain by playing it smart. "Marco Torres, start making a list. Everything we'd need to get her basic systems running. Life support maneuvering thrusters, at least 1 reactor online." Torres blinked. "Captain, you can't be serious. We can't fly this thing." "Why not?" "The hull's intact. The superstructure's solid. Yeah, their fancy quantum drive is toast and their biocomputers are fried. But we don't need their tech. We need ours." She pointed at the schematics. "We gut the dead systems, retrofit with human hardware. Fusion reactors instead of quantum cores. Hardwire neural interfaces instead of organic computing. If it doesn't work, we slap more duct tape on it until it does." "That's insane," Yuki said, but she was grinning. "That's human," Sarah corrected. She turned to face her crew and saw her own wild hope reflected in their eyes. The Kaleen look at broken things and see garbage. We look at them and see potential. They abandoned this ship because they couldn't imagine fixing it their way. But we're not going to fix it their way. Marco laughed, the sound slightly unhinged. "We're going to build a monster, aren't we?" We're going to build something that'll make the Kalleen wish they'd stayed to guard their trash. Sarah pulled up the comm system. All hands, new priority. We're not stripping this ship, we're claiming her. Welcome to the longest, craziest retrofit job in human history. As the Rusty Fortune's crew began their EVA approach, Sarah stared at the dead dreadnought and felt something she hadn't felt in years. Purpose. The Kalleen had given up on the eternal sovereignty. Humanity was just getting started. Blueprints and blasphemy. The cargo bay of the eternal sovereignty was larger than most human space stations. Marco's boots clanged against the deck plating as he swept his flashlight across rows of empty weapon mounts and shattered crystalline conduits. The air was thin, emergency reserves from their portable generators, and tasted like metal and ambition. This is going to take more than duct tape, he muttered into his helmet comm. Sarah's voice crackled back. Good thing we've got a whole station's worth of scrap dealers waiting for us. She wasn't wrong. 3 days after the discovery, they'd towed the Sovereignty to Terminus Station, a lawless orbital depot in the ass end of neutral space where questions weren't asked and regulations were polite suggestions at best. The station master, a grizzled Centauri named Vex, had taken one look at the Kalleen dreadnought and quoted them a docking fee that made Torres choke on his drink. Then Sarah showed him the blueprints. Now 2 weeks later, the Sovereignty hung in Terminus's largest dry dock, surrounded by a swarm of human, alien, and hybrid workers who'd signed on for a share of the madness. The cargo bay had become their operations center. A chaotic maze of holographic projections, welding sparks, and arguments conducted in 6 different languages. All right, people, listen up. Sarah stood on a makeshift platform constructed from Kalleen hull plating and human scaffolding. Below her, nearly 80 crew members, salvagers, engineers, ex-military, and a few whose backgrounds were better left unquestioned, turned to face her. She activated the central holodisplay. The Sovereignty materialized above them in ghostly blue light, 3 kilometers of wounded pride. Here's what we're working with. The Kalleen built this ship using bio-integrated technology. Living computers, self-healing hull plates, quantum drives that fold space like origami, beautiful, elegant, and completely fucking dead. A few laughs rippled through the crowd. Their quantum core is slag. Their organic neural network is fossil fuel. Their crystalline power distribution system shattered into a million very expensive paperweights. She zoomed in on the ship's spine, highlighting the massive cavity where the drive had been. The Kalleen look at this and see irreparable damage. We're going to look at it and see the biggest goddamn modification opportunity in history. Marco stepped forward, pulling up his engineering schematics. We start with power. The Kalleen quantum core is gone, so we're installing human fusion reactors. 6 Mark 7 heavies salvaged from decommissioned carriers. Yeah, they're older tech. Yeah, they're inefficient compared to quantum systems. But they're reliable, they're repairable, and most importantly, we actually understand how they work. Torres took over, his scarred hands dancing across the controls. Propulsion is trickier. We can't replace the quantum drive. That tech's still 50 years beyond us. But we don't need faster than light. We just need to move. I'm proposing a hybrid system. Kalleen graviton emitters for maneuvering, they're still functional, paired with human plasma drives for main thrust. It's like putting a motorcycle engine in a Rolls-Royce, but it'll fly. What about computing? Someone called from the back. You can't run a ship this size on basic systems. Yuki stepped into the light, her expression intense. No, we can't. The Kalleen organic substrate is dead, and we can't grow new biocomputers. So we're going hybrid. We strip out the dead tissue, install human neural interface cores, and use the remaining Kalleen crystalline pathways as data highways. It's never been done before. It violates about 40 different safety protocols. And according to my simulations, it just might work. Just might. The skepticism came from a burly woman with Alliance Navy tattoos. Nothing about this is certain, Sarah said flatly. We're mixing technologies that were never meant to interface. We're using human engineering to puppet alien systems. We're essentially performing surgery on a corpse and hoping to create something that lives. So yeah, just might is the best guarantee you're getting. She let that sink in, watching faces around the bay. Some looked nervous, most looked hungry. Here's the deal. We've got 8 months before the K-Line sweep this sector again. 8 months to take a dead dreadnought and turn it into something that can power up, maneuver, and defend itself. We're not trying to restore it to factory condition. We're trying to create something new, something the galaxy's never seen. Marco grinned. A human ship wearing Kaline skin. More than that, Sarah said. The Kaline build ships that are works of art. Beautiful, perfect, untouchable. We build ships that are tools. Ugly, practical, immortal. This? She gestured at the sovereignty. This is going to be both. Kaline elegance powered by human stubbornness. Their technology, our willpower. Their failure, our second chance. She pulled up the work schedule, a dense matrix of tasks, teams, and timelines that looked more like a battle plan than a construction project. We're dividing into 6 primary teams: power systems, propulsion, computing, weapons, life support, and structural integrity. Every team gets a section of the ship and autonomy to solve problems however you see fit. I don't care if your solution is elegant or orthodox. I care if it works. If you need to weld a human plasma conduit to a Kaline energy manifold using spit and prayer, you do it. If you need to reroute ship functions through a gaming console because it's the only computer with enough processing power, you do it. Torres raised a hand. What about weapons? The Kaline particle lances are integrated into the hull structure. We can't just rip them out. We're not ripping them out. We're adapting them. Sarah switched views to the weapon systems. The lances are still mechanically sound. They just don't have power or targeting. We run human fire control systems, feed them with our reactors, and see what happens. Worst case, they don't fire. Best case, we've got Kaline energy weapons with human trigger discipline. Someone in the crowd whistled appreciatively. Final thing, Sarah said, her voice dropping. What we're doing here isn't legal, isn't safe, and definitely isn't approved by any government that values paperwork. The Kaline will call it desecration. The Alliance will call it reckless. And they're both right. But we're salvagers. We take what's broken and make it whole. We take what's abandoned and give it purpose. She looked around at her crew. Misfits, outlaws, dreamers, and daredevils united by the most human impulse of all, the refusal to accept that something can't be done. So let's show the galaxy what happens when you leave your garbage where humans can find it. Let's build something impossible. The cheers echoed through the empty cargo bay like thunder. In the shadows of the dry dock, the Eternal Sovereignty waited, dead metal and dormant systems, unaware that it was about to be reborn, not as what it was, but as something the universe had never imagined.